You know what's absolutely wild? I just watched something that made my blood run cold, and honestly, it should terrify every single person who's ever laughed at a joke. But here's the kicker. Most people don't even realize what just happened. Picture this. You're watching your favorite comedian on TV, having a good laugh after a long day, when suddenly, boom, they're gone. Not because they weren't funny, not because people stopped watching, but because someone, somewhere, decided their jokes went too far. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is just another rant about cancel culture, hold up. What I'm about to show you goes way deeper than that. This isn't about left versus right or woke versus conservative. This is about something so fundamental to our society that when it crumbles, everything else follows. Let me paint a picture of what really goes down behind those studio doors. You see, there's this conversation that happened recently, and I'm talking about a real conversation with someone who's been in the comedy trenches for decades. Someone who's seen it all, done it all, and knows exactly what's at stake. When asked about a comedian getting pulled off the air, his response was chilling in its simplicity. I have no idea. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room. I don't know. But here's what he didn't say out loud, and this is where it gets really interesting. The silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? When industry veterans start giving diplomatic non-answers, you know there's a war happening behind the scenes. And trust me, this war isn't just about comedy, it's about something much bigger. But wait, there's more, because what happened next in this conversation will blow your mind. When pressed about whether this was business or political pressure, the response was even more telling. Complete deflection. I think Jimmy will land on his feet. He's a talented guy. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone avoids answering a direct question about political pressure in entertainment, my spider senses start tingling. Because here's what I've learned after years of watching this industry. When they won't talk about the pressure, it means the pressure is real. And here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and terrifying at the same time. This veteran comic said something that should be etched in stone. If you don't like it, don't watch it. That's the market. Boom, there it is. The free market solution that built America. You don't like something? Change the channel. Vote with your remote. Vote with your wallet. But apparently, that's not good enough anymore. Because now we've got people making decisions about what you can and cannot laugh at. And trust me, once they start deciding what's funny, they'll start deciding what you can think about everything else. But here's what really got me fired up. And this is where you need to pay attention, because this affects every single one of us. When asked if the future of comedy is in good hands, the response was a casual, it'll be all right. Don't worry about it. Really? Don't worry about it? When comedians are getting yanked off the air for telling jokes? When entire careers can be destroyed overnight by a handful of complaints? When the people who are supposed to make us laugh are walking on eggshells? Let me tell you why you should absolutely worry about it. Comedy isn't just entertainment, it's the canary in the coal mine of free speech. When comedians can't speak freely, when they're looking over their shoulders every time they write a joke, that's when you know democracy is in trouble. And here's the part that'll make your head spin. This veteran comic said something that'll shock you. It's like terrorists. One day they're on, one day they're off. One day they're on, one day they're off. Did you catch that? He's comparing the uncertainty in comedy to terrorism. Think about that for a second. The unpredictability, the fear, the never knowing when the next attack will come, that's what comedy has become in America today. But wait, it gets even crazier, because when asked if it's difficult to do comedy in this climate, the answer was pure gold. No, you just do it. Whatever the price is, you pay it because that's what free speech is about. Now that's what I call courage. That's the spirit that built this country. You do it anyway. You pay the price because freedom isn't free. And if you're not willing to pay for it, you don't deserve to have it. And then came the moment that gave me chills. When asked how he would address everything that's happening right now, his response was, I don't know. I'm not on the air right now. Well, I'm on the air right now, and I'm addressing you. Brilliant. absolutely brilliant, because that's exactly what free speech looks like. It's not about having a platform handed to you. It's about using whatever platform you have, wherever you are, to speak your truth. But here's where he really dropped the hammer, and this is something every American needs to hear. I'm for free speech. Henry Patrick said it best. Give me liberty or give me death. That was the first go-around with this argument. What's been going on for 200 years, and then a free society will go on for another 200. Give me liberty or give me death. Those weren't just pretty words from some dead guy in a powdered wig. Those were fighting words. Words that mean something. Words that people died for. And here's what blows my mind. We're having the same fight today that they had 200 years ago. The same exact fight. The only difference is the weapons have changed. Instead of muskets and cannons, they're using advertisers and social media mobs. But the principle remains the same. Either you're free to speak your mind or you're not free at all. There's no middle ground. There's no compromise. You're either free or you're a slave to someone else's definition of acceptable speech. Now let me tell you what really scares the people in power about comedy. It's not the jokes themselves. Trust me, most politicians have heard worse things in their own strategy meetings. What scares them is that comedy reveals truth. Think about it. The best comedians aren't just telling jokes, they're holding up a mirror to society and saying, look at how ridiculous this is. They're pointing out the emperor's new clothes. They're making people think while they laugh. And when people start thinking, when people start questioning, when people start laughing at the wrong things, well, that's when those in power start getting nervous. Here's what I find absolutely insane about this whole situation. We live in a time where you can watch the most graphic violence imaginable on television, where you can access any kind of content you want with a few clicks, where social media is filled with the most toxic garbage you've ever seen, but a comedian tells a joke and suddenly everyone loses their minds. The hypocrisy is staggering, absolutely staggering. You can destroy someone's life with a false accusation on Twitter. You can spread actual misinformation that affects people's health and safety. You can promote hatred and division all day long, but make a joke that hurts someone's feelings? Career over. And here's what really gets me about this whole thing. The people screaming the loudest about offensive comedy are usually the same people who claim to be fighting for the oppressed and marginalized. But what's more oppressive than telling people what they can and cannot laugh at? What's more marginalizing than deciding that certain groups can't handle jokes? What's more condescending than saying that comedy needs to be sanitized to protect people's feelings? I'll tell you what's really going on here. This isn't about protecting anyone. This is about control, pure and simple. It's about a small group of people deciding what the rest of us can think, say, and laugh about. And they're using our own compassion against us. They're weaponizing empathy. They're making us feel guilty for laughing, making us second-guess our own sense of humor, making us police ourselves. But here's the thing about freedom. And this is something that veteran comedian understood perfectly. You can't have selective freedom. You can't say, free speech for me, but not for thee. It doesn't work that way. Either everyone gets to speak their mind, or nobody does. Either we trust people to make their own decisions about what to watch and what to laugh at, or we live in a society where a handful of gatekeepers control everything we see and hear. And let me tell you something about those gatekeepers. They're not smarter than you. They're not more moral than you. They're not more qualified than you to decide what's appropriate. The only difference between them and you is that they've managed to get themselves into positions of power. But power is temporary. Trends change. What's considered acceptable today might be considered offensive tomorrow, and vice versa. The only constant is change, and the only protection against the tyranny of temporary trends is the permanent principle of free speech. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what about hate speech? What about speech that actually hurts people? And look, I get it. I really do. Nobody wants to see people genuinely hurt by words. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. The definition of harmful speech keeps expanding. What started as protection against actual threats and incitement to violence has morphed into protection from being offended, from having your feelings hurt, from hearing ideas you disagree with. And once you start down that road, there's no stopping. Because someone, somewhere, will always be offended by something. Someone will always claim to be hurt by words. Someone will always demand that speech be restricted just a little bit more. That's why that comedian's approach is so brilliant. You just do it. Whatever the price is, you pay it because that's what free speech is about. He understands that freedom isn't comfortable. It's not safe. It's not guaranteed to make everyone happy. But it's the only system that allows us to figure out the truth together through open debate and discussion. It's the only system that allows for progress, for change, for growth. It's the only system that treats people like adults capable of making their own decisions. And here's what I find most inspiring about that conversation. Despite everything that's happening, despite the pressure and the uncertainty and the fear, there's still hope. There are still people willing to stand up and say, this is what I believe, and I'm not going to back down. Because that's what America is really about. Not the buildings or the borders or the flag, the